Quar, a desert world located on the edge of the warp rift known as the Black Diamond. Remote and inaccessible, Quar has been ignored by the larger galaxy for much of its history. Despite this, the world would eventually play a vital role in the struggle for the Erebus sector and witness some of the most terrible battles the region had ever seen. Although considered a backwater compared to the larger population centers of the Erebus sector, the world was once home to an imperial colony and served as the homeworld for the children of Oman-Ra, chapter of the Adeptus Astartes. However, the occult and esoteric practices of the children of Oman-Ra created considerable tensions between the chapter and the other imperial commanders in the sector, particularly the Inquisition. These events culminated in 988 M41, when Inquisitor Levodin declared the children of Oman-Ra excommunicate traitors and launched a full-scale invasion of Quar. The First War for Quar lasted for 2 years, ultimately resulting in the defeat of the children of Oman-Ra. Led by Chapter Master Tavos Efru, the few survivors of the renegade chapter fled and sought refuge in the Black Diamond, only to return 5 years later to reclaim their homeworld. By 007, M42 Hive Fleet Abyss have been slowly spreading across the Erebus sector for over 30 years. However, the success of the Tyranid invasion had created a problem for the Broodlord Janus. The Hive Fleet required biomass to sustain it, but all easily accessible sources had already been exterminated by the Swarm. Janus cast his gaze on the verdant colonies of the Tau Empire in the galactic south of the sector, lush, richly populated worlds that would provide all the biomass the Swarm needed. The only obstacle in the Swarm's path was Quar. If that world fell, the entire sector would be vulnerable to the encroaching Swarm. At the same time, Wolf Lord Marka Ragnos was plotting a strike on the children of Oman-Ra. He craved vengeance on the traitors who he held responsible for the deaths of the first Space Wolf expedition to the Erebus sector, and it galled him that renegades openly maintained their homeworld in a nominally imperial sector. It was as these preparations were being made that Ragnos was approached by an unexpected ally. Ever since the Battle of Lost Way, the Farseer Auron had been concerned with the rising influence of chaos in the sector. He had foreseen the coming Tyranid invasion of Quar and saw an opportunity to strike a decisive blow. Convincing Ragnos that their aims aligned, Auron struck a pact with the Wolf Lord. The Eldar and Space Wolves would strike at the children of Oman-Ra in the midst of the Tyranid invasion, using overwhelming force to annihilate the renegade chapter. Finally, the Necron overlord Sotur opted to use this time to launch an expedition to Quar. Having recovered many of his past memories, Sotur was desperate to recover any fragments of his lost work. Aeons ago, he had maintained a facility on Quar, and Sotur seized the opportunity of the coming conflict to attack and reclaim what he could. By coincidence or connivance, overwhelming forces were bearing down on Quar. Against such a force, the children of Oman-Ra appeared to be destined for obliteration. The children of Oman Ra were not unprepared. Ever since Tavos Efru had recovered the Cerulean Eye on Lost Way, he had experienced visions of the coming war. He saw clearly the machinations of Janus, Oron, Ragnos, and Sotur. Through the visions granted by the 3 relics of Oman Ra in his possession, Efru knew that the invasion of Omelquar was unavoidable. However, although he could not prevent the war, Efru also saw that the conflict was not necessarily destined to end with the annihilation of his people. With this in mind, he set out to prepare the defense of his world. Efru dispatched his 2 lieutenants, Zar the Mad and Eyez the Woodsman, to gather allies through the Erebus sector. Eyez was sent to the court of Warlord Vulgrim, a long-standing ally of the children of Oman Ra. The promise of the coming fight was sufficient to convince Vulgrim. The Orc warlord personally led a massive force to fight on Omelquar. Zar was dispatched to the Tau Empire. Meeting with Shazo Saifa on the world of Navel, Zar provided evidence of the coming invasion and the threat Hive Abyss posed to the Tau Empire. The ruling council of the Tau Expeditionary Force was divided. The children of Oman Ra were long-standing enemies of the Tau Empire, and many argued that it would be better to allow Omelquar to burn. However, Saifa argued passionately for the intervention. If Omelquar fell, the Tyranids would be free to assail the Tau colony worlds in the sector. It was perhaps a faint hope, but the defenders prepared themselves for the coming assault. The Tau were fighting for the civilians they had devoted their lives to defending. The Orks were fighting because it was what Orks were made for, and the children of Oman Ra were fighting for their beloved homeland, the heart of the knowledge they had always striven to protect. The stage for the Third War for Omelquar was set.